A seeming belief on the part of our citizens that our homeless problem is disproportionate, that it's somehow more severe than the rest of the country. I want to make sure we state at the outset, this is a national problem. And let me just give some context to that. We're still waiting for our point-in-time count for 2018 that was done the last week of January. But based on the point-in-time count in 2017, we had 1,415 homeless, including 457 people unsheltered. That means El Paso County has 210 homeless for 100,000 people. Here's what I know, having acquired some information last couple of weeks. There's an organization in town called Elevated Insights that does public opinion surveys. And they surveyed panhandlers in Colorado Springs and asked them if they weren't from Colorado Springs, why they chose Colorado Springs. The number one cited reason was access to marijuana. The number two cited reason was the people are nice. I also, and I think Lieutenant Lux can confirm this or not, I've spent a lot of time with the homeless outreach folks, the team, asking them for the chronic folks that don't want to be sheltered, at least resist sheltering. Why do they say they don't want to be sheltered? And I think one of the common responses is, I want to smoke pot when I want to smoke pot, I want to shoot up when I want to shoot up, and that's inconsistent with a shelter life, even in a low barrier shelter.
Yep.
Mike, do you have any?
No, I would say that's accurate. That's coming from the homeless outreach team. When they go out, they're talking to what seems to be a much younger crowd that's out there now, that's chronically homeless, but also it seems to be enjoying that lifestyle and not wanting to move away from that lifestyle. And part of the reason they're giving is because the ability to smoke marijuana.
Has the city considered a housing first policy, and what does the panel see as the pros and cons of this kind of policy? Also identify what the housing first policy is for homeless folks.
Housing First is a evidence-based practice of housing the homeless. This is taking people off the streets as they are, placing them into a apartment or a home with wraparound services that provide the individual with the medical care, mental health, or substance abuse treatment, but mostly a navigator to help them apply for benefits, to go to appointments. Often there's transportation assistance. But the best thing about these programs is often those services are brought to where the clients live. So if we look at Housing First models around the country, these are robust apartment buildings that have service providers on site, living or having offices on the first floor of an apartment building. Now, we use Housing First right now. We have approximately 8 service providers in our community with Housing First voucher programs that HUD funds. It's the top priority for HUD funding right now. So we have well over 300 individuals and families using a Housing First model through a variety of service providers, my agency, Homeward Pikes Peak, being one of them. I'm also very happy to say that we have 2 permanent supportive housing apartment buildings being built in the near future. One of them will be built on the Springs Rescue Mission campus called Greenway Flats, and the second one is called Freedom Springs. It's a partnership between Volunteers of America, United Way, and the Pacino Group, which is the developer. We hope that both projects break ground this spring and open their doors, providing housing to 115 individuals. Freedom Springs is 50 units for veterans. Springs Rescue Mission is 65 for adult women and men.
Right now, the vast majority of our PSH vouchers are not relying upon service-oriented structures and facilities being built. They're literally just apartments. That's where the vast majority of our permanent supportive housing clients go with their vouchers. The problem is right now, actually I don't know right now, I wasn't at the meeting today. As of a couple of weeks ago, about 47 outstanding vouchers for PSH are just floating out there for people camping because they can't find a landlord that'll A, take it, and B, that they can afford. Because the vouchers right now are maxing out about $735. And there's not an apartment out there for them to get into. So, Right now, building more permanent supportive housing, which is very expensive, is a solution. We need to be pursuing that, we need to be funding that, but also we need to be realizing as a community that we all have a stake in this, especially as property owners. If we want to see a reduction in homelessness, we might need to take a look at the profit margins and say, I can literally house this many people with my property if I was willing to actually serve people with a voucher.
I just want to add to it that this voucher problem, you know, that's in my opinion, that's what's kept us from zero veterans homelessness. You know, I've made a pledge to try and eliminate veterans homelessness. And correct me if I'm wrong, but at this point in time, we're able to put a voucher in the hands of every homeless veteran. But that doesn't mean that there's a landlord out there that's willing to take that voucher as opposed to a market rate rent.
We need new construction. We can take bites out of it, yes, and we should. We need to do whatever we can, but we really need to build. We need to build new complexes, and you know, quite frankly, we have supportive housing is housing for people who have serious issues. We couldn't even get, or we're really struggling with getting Broadmoor Bluffs built in this community. People don't want apartment complexes in their neighborhoods.
Well, in addition to that, I think the most difficult funding issue is new construction of permanent supportive housing. You've heard, we're talking, you know, 16, 17, 18 million dollars for 65, 70 units. Folks, that doesn't happen unless you can convince a developer to become involved. Now, why do they have any incentive to do so? There are tax incentives for doing it. So, for example, in the case of the rescue mission and Greenway Flats, with that 65 units, Norwood is the developer. And, you know, Norwood's got plenty of things to develop other than this. This is not going to be a highly profitable development for them, but they're willing to go through the regulatory process and do that. There's a national developer, I think, in the case of Freedom Springs. Vecino. And we need to attract some of those national developers that are in the business of doing it.
Hey, if we give the people certain things, trash might stop or these things will stop. I can tell you, in no disrespect, but I can tell you that we just cleaned up an area with 55 people behind Springs Rescue Mission. And it took me 4 dumpster loads to clean up the trash, and these people were saying, we're going to keep it clean. That doesn't happen. It is very, very dirty. I just came back from California, and their biggest problem is their camps are huge, really large, 1,000 people plus, is hepatitis A. Not only for the homeless individuals, but also now they're concerned about the healthcare workers, the first responders, and the officers. So we need to do something that's correct. But I guess I'm just wondering, why would they pick up trash for whatever the pay is if they're not even picking it around their own campsite? I guess I just have that in the back of my mind.
They are.
All right, wait. Tricky, get a response. Wait, hold your horse.
If you give them trash dumpsters, they pick it up. I got multiple camps I can take you to and show you myself.
Let me tell you, when I go to a mayor's conference, I go to every single session on homeless and what strategies are. Nationally, everybody is advising against a city-sponsored homeless camp. That it's an absolute disaster in terms of public safety. Assaultive behavior, needles, and the dangers that are posed. And Terry, you know what happened when we had an informal camp last summer, I think. And so I know there's a lot of people enthusiastic about that. Nationally, that is not the recommendation.
I would ask 2 things. One is, if you're really tired of people panhandling, it doesn't matter where they're panhandling, we could make an ordinance for whatever, but just stop giving them money. Stop giving money to people and give it to the charities. I just want to make sure it's clear that I said, give it to the charities. The charities are the one that can help and do that correctly. If you're tired of people doing certain things, help us stop it. And I think they came along with good points on how to do that. But there's so many things that are wrong right now with people, in a sense, camping. Legal or not, it's the same type of situation with the explosions that you've heard about, the fires you've heard about, the dirt, the destruction of the property, the theft that goes on.
But we aren't building public trust. And I don't understand where that comes from. Is it from a lack of communication? Is it because of is it the visible, is it some of the visible homelessness that doesn't feel like it's being addressed in a meaningful way? I want to know what we need to do as the leadership in this community to earn your trust so that we all have a common purpose. When Salt Lake City had a common purpose for Housing First, they built 1,000 units of supportive housing. When Los Angeles agreed that homelessness was a priority, they taxed themselves, not telling you to do that, but they passed a tax and a bond measure of $1.2 billion to build housing and supportive services. That's what happens when we have a shared commitment, that we all connect to this issue and share in the responsibility. So I hope that is the next conversation we're going to have.
I don't want to show my progressive colors a little too much here, but we are one of the lowest tax cities in America. So you can't constantly be looking at the city and saying, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with your no money? So we have decided as a culture that we are going to be an independent people from government tax, right? So that means we need to solve it together as a people, not looking to organizations and institutions to do it, but as a groundswell of movement and togetherness to solve this. Because the problem's only going to get worse if we're waiting on solutions down the road. There's things to do now.
The city will be unveiling a campaign in March, including signage that will encourage folks to give directly to service providers instead of giving to panhandlers. We are also going to place 6 dumpsters close to trails, but obviously with access to garbage trucks that can get to them. We'll see whether the extent to which they're used by the homeless, but if nothing else, we're doing it because it's easier for the city to accomplish the cleanups if the dumpsters are there. Finally, I will tell you that increased camp and trail cleanups will be a very serious priority for the city in 2018.